Mike Florio, the editor of ProFootballTalk.com. He joins us now. Is that the case, Mike? You had to have the real ones work tonight if they were going to work the weekend?
Yeah, Dan, that's absolutely right. And Jim Deopoulos explained that to me yesterday. He's our officiating consultant at NBC. We couldn't have picked a better year to hire the guy. But he said that because of competitive balance, you can't start a week with replacement officials and then have the regular officials the rest of the weekend, because if the Ravens would get screwed on a bad call by a replacement official, they'd be able to say, well, if we just played on Sunday, we'd have had the real officials. So it was every game or no games, and that's why they hustled to get it done in time for tonight.
Complete this sentence. If we don't have the fallout from Monday night,
this deal would have gotten done by next week, because we forget after Monday night that before that game, it was already reaching the tipping point. Before that game, it was crossing over into mainstream news, and casual fans, Super Bowl-only fans, Tim Tebow fans, people who don't pay close attention to the sport were aware of the officiating problems. It was the boiling point after Monday night, but even before that, the heat was getting turned up on this.
Why did this get settled?
Because of what happened Monday night, because the NFL couldn't afford to have its game, its brand, its officials be the butt of jokes on Letterman and Leno and the lead story on the Today Show. You can't have that. This was the worst possible outcome for the NFL. They never expected that it would be this bad. And once it got to that point, to their credit, they realized we got to roll up our sleeves and get this done. And to the credit of the officials, they had an opportunity to step on the NFL's throat, and they didn't. And if the roles were reversed, the NFL would have driven the hardest possible bargain.
Why do you think the commissioner deserves a raise?
Well, you and I don't decide his compensation. The 32 owners do. And the one thing that's been lost in all of this, regardless of what you feel of the commissioner, he's doing what he's told. And he's covering for the owners. Not once did a single owner get criticized during this process. You had players speaking out. Did any of them say, I'm surprised and disappointed that the owner of this team isn't standing up to try to get this done? The owners were not criticized. The owners were able to operate under the cover provided by the commissioner. And at the end of the day, who decides our compensation? It's our bosses. And from the perspective of Goodell being the pincushion, while the owners are able to drive the hardest possible bargain until it all blew up and they had to do a deal without getting killed by the officials union, they have to be feeling very happy about what Roger Goodell did. The rest of us don't like it because we get mad at the league office. We don't get mad at the individual teams. And that's one of the reasons we don't get mad at the individual teams, because the league office provides cover in situations like this.
Yeah, but the commissioner's job, while he's supposed to be a puppet for the owners or acquiesce to them, he still has to govern the sport, and he failed there. He may have...
Ask Faye Vincent about that. I mean, that's the reality. If you spend too much time governing the sport and alienating the owners, they'll fire you, and one of the owners will end up being the commissioner.
Okay, but he may have done his job for the owners, but what did he do to the fans? What did he do to the game?
Oh, well, and that's the issue. Did he do this, or was it the owners who were hell-bent on doing it?
Okay, but why didn't the commissioner come forward, Mike, after Monday's game on Tuesday, so we got to hear him and see him?
Well, nothing good comes out of it. At that point, their focus became, as it should have been, let's get a deal done.
Okay.
Let's put this thing... I mean, they worked till 2 a.m. the day after. They knew that it was time to get a deal done. And, look, I don't agree with how they handled the aftermath of that. From the perspective of a fan and a member of the media, you look at it and say, there's no way that was the right call. There's no way that statement the league issued holds water. There's no way that they're selling us a truthful bill of goods here. But instead of worrying about that, they stayed hunkered down, and they got a deal done. And to their credit, they recognized when it was time to relent. They never liked to give in. They never liked to do anything other than hit a home run at the bargaining table. And they finally gave in on some key points and got this thing done. He's
Mike Florio, the editor of ProFootballTalk.com, joining us, Dan Patrick Show. But I'm also looking at this, and as we move forward, heroes welcome for these officials?
Yeah,
right?
For now, until they start making bad calls again. And that's the problem. They're going to be under more scrutiny than ever. This hurts NFL officiating. They're going to be scrutinized for every mistake they make. And previously crazy stuff fans would say, like, oh, that guy must be a Saints fan. Well, now with this whole Brian Stropolo thing from week 2, there's legitimacy to what previously would be the rantings of a crazy person. So now there's going to be more suspicion. There's going to be greater scrutiny. The officials lose in this to a certain extent because their job isn't going to be easier. It's going to be harder than it was before this lockout.
Yeah, that's why I keep cautioning people that, the real guys are back, but the real guys had issues as well. I was surprised that the replacement officials did not get better. They got worse, and I think that the coaches and the players, the assistant coaches, they all sense what was going on. You could bully the referees, and they certainly went out of their way to do so.
Well, you hit the nail on the head at the top of the show. The idea that at some point in our lives, and for some of us more than once, we're in situations where we know we're over our heads. And there's nothing that feels better than getting out of that situation. And my guess, and this is just pure speculation, my guess is whatever contract these folks signed to be replacements had some clause in there requiring them to pay back the NFL whatever the value of the training is that they received. So they essentially were handcuffed to that job. Because I'm certain some of those folks had to be thinking about quitting and going home and hiding under the bed for 4 months.
Is there an asterisk attached to this season?
Well, there may be, because you know what's going to happen. We're going to get down to late December, and we're going to be watching the playoff races and home field advantage. And if the Packers miss the playoffs by a game, where 2 years ago they got in by the skin of their teeth, and they were the 6th seed, and they ran the table and won the Super Bowl, you're going to have some Packers fans who are going to fashion an asterisk out of cheese and attach it to this season forever. So the NFL needs to hope that at the end of the day, when the dust settles, you can't look at the final standings in the NFC and see anybody harmed by the outcome Monday night. And there's too many tentacles here, because you've got the Seahawks getting a benefit to the detriment not just of the Packers, but the Cardinals, 49ers, and Rams in their division. So one way or another, there's going to be something we can point to and said, aha, go back to September, and if they make that right call, this doesn't happen in late December.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, see you, buddy.
All right. See you this weekend. Mike Florio, ProFootballTalk.com, also contributes to NBC Sports, Football Night in America.